crisis averted just a few hours before this morning's midnight deadline. At the 11th hour, with millions braced for shutdown, Congress found the compromise to keep the government in business, though crisis temporarily postponed is probably much more accurate because another deadline looms. This spending runs out in 47 days. Our focus here, as always, is us, South Florida, and the local impacts right here at the airports, housing, Veterans Affairs, the people who arrange for your passports, parks, so much as the political wrangling goes on in those chambers at the Capitol. The National Federation of Federal Employees represents people who work across that national spectrum, and its president, Randy Erwin, grew up right here in Miami, and Randy Erwin is right here with us live today. So good to have you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So you're in Washington now, though, right? Miami guy
I am.
in
I'm
Washington.
2 blocks from the White House.
Excellent. So I want to start out with, I was last night, as I was thinking about what our conversation was going to be like, it was a very different conversation that I was expecting to have. So I guess a little bit of temporary good news. But Randy, can you go into sort of local, we are a local program and we talk all about South Florida. And I want to get a sense from you, the breadth of the employee base here and the federal services right here in South Florida.
Sure. Well, the state of Florida has 90,000 federal workers, and that makes up about 5% of the federal workforce. There's about 2 million overall. We represent some of the workers down there at the VA in Broward County. We have Agriculture Research Service down in Pinecrest. We also represent the passport workers, as you just mentioned. But there's a lot of federal workers down there, and so this shutdown would have had a huge impact on South Florida.
And what have you been hearing from them this week? Because, it was my sense no one was expecting this compromise as of last night.
That's true. We're very relieved that Congress, sanity prevailed and they got an agreement done. But there was a lot of worry. Last time we had a 35-day shutdown. Federal employees missed 2 paychecks, and people don't realize it, but federal employees are 24% underpaid compared to people doing the same jobs in the private sector. Only about 15% are in Washington, 85% are spread throughout the country, and about 60% of federal employees live paycheck to paycheck. So when they missed 2 paychecks, that had real consequences for federal workers. And so, people were missing mortgage payments, rent payments, missing credit card payments, and having their credit card rates jacked up in the wintertime. Last time they were returning presents for Christmas, unwrapping them and returning them. Some were turning off their heat during the middle of winter. So those are really the stakes for folks that live paycheck to paycheck when there's a shutdown.
That's kind of a big lesson to think about, because I want to just clarify, all the government workers, when, let's say there has been a shutdown, and there may well be coming up in November, but the last one this time, those employees do get their back pay. So it's more of a cash flow issue than an actual work stoppage. Is that valid?
That's true. And that's a big difference between the last shutdown and this one, is that, unions and other employee advocates were able to get legislation passed at the end of the last shutdown to guarantee that federal employees get back pay for the time that they were furloughed or forced to work without pay during a shutdown. So that definitely took, some of the pressure off. But you got to remember that people don't know how long a shutdown's going to last. The last one was 35 days, but they've been getting longer and longer. And, it wasn't really clear how this one would resolve itself. And so, it looked like we were pretty certain there's going to be a shutdown. And what if it doesn't just go 1 month? What if it goes on for 2 months? There are limits to how long people who live paycheck to paycheck can go before they're in pretty serious financial dire straits.
Yeah,
and so that's the real problem.
100%. And coming off of not a year past COVID shutdowns, it's kind of like layer upon layer at the moment. I want to talk a little bit about the service end of things, because that's sort of the other half of the calamity, is that all of these services, I don't think people sometimes realize what is federally funded that goes away in a kind of a shutdown. We spoke to the heads of the airports here, Miami International and Fort Lauderdale International, and they were expecting business as usual. But I wanted to kind of bounce that off of you because with both air traffic controllers and TSA federally funded, how were you expecting to be airports business as usual?
So it does vary by agency. Some agencies are virtually shut down. Air travel is one of the things that is, considered essential. And in the short term, it would be business as usual. But, TSA workers are some of the lowest paid federal employees that you'll find everywhere. The way the last shutdown, really kind of came to an end was that TSA workers couldn't afford to put gas in their cars to go to work after they had missed their second paycheck. And so, yeah, you could say it's business as usual. And until people start missing paychecks, you may be right in the short term. But that once people start missing pay, then everything starts to crumble.
I want to sort of talk about if there is a difference between that kind of atmosphere. Air traffic controllers, essential. Those are kind of career people. Air traffic control is a career, you're in it for decades, mostly.
Sure.
Um,
Mhm.
the TSA agents, maybe not so much. And might it be much more easy for a TSA agent to say, listen, I just can't function like this. I'm getting another job. I mean, do you see that as an issue with a security issue at the airports?
Uh, sure. Yeah, we need to pay the TSA workers better. Absolutely. Or else that's going to happen. If you don't look at things as a career, or if, objective, I mentioned earlier, federal employees on average paid 24% less than people in the private sector. So everywhere across the federal government, we are seeing federal workers that are going, is it really worth it to can I put my family through this, taking this kind of a pay cut in order to, work for the federal government? Think about a VA nurse, who's there because she cares for the American veteran, but she could go to a private hospital, across the street and make a lot more, but she sticks it out to work at the VA. And we just got to do better, or else we have severe problems recruiting and retaining, and ultimately having the government that the American people deserve.
Randy, aside from the practical effects, do you hear from your members any kind of politics involved? Are they focused on that at all?
Of course we do. We're I like to say we're the most bipartisan union you'll find anywhere in America. And we work equally with both Republicans and Democrats in Capitol Hill. We have to. But yeah, we hear a lot about the politics. We try to stay above it. Really to get anything done in Washington, you gotta have bipartisan coalitions. And so, a big one that we've been working on is wildland firefighters. Wildland firefighters were about to reach a pay cliff where they were going to lose half their pay. And, in bipartisan fashion, we got some language included in this continuing resolution to avert that pay cliff temporarily. But if you go about it, and try to, get close with one party and exclude the other, you can't get anything done for your members. And it's hard for people in Washington to do the right things when they need to.
So how active are they? I mean, these are the people with really the most to lose immediately. How active are they in phoning their reps, emailing their senators, really participating in the process and, using whatever leverage they might have?
Sure. Well, there's a difference between advocacy, calling your members of Congress and advocating for them to do the right thing, and being in the more overtly partisan things like endorsing candidates and giving them money and things like that.
Yeah.
And so we are very, very active on the legislative front, on the advocacy front, and but we do it equally with both Republicans and Democrats, and because of that, we have great relationships on both sides of the aisle.
Randy Erwin with the National Federation of Federal Employees. Some good insight, intel. We really appreciate you joining us today on a Sunday.
Thank you so much for having me.